Where'd you come from?
From somewhere.
From somewhere. Okay. So as you know, we are fanatical about compost, right?
Yes.
And also, as you know, we have help in making our compost. And I'm not talking about little boys only, but also
Worms.
worms. We have worms. So obviously, in order to use worms in your compost, you have to have a supply of worms on hand to do that. So we keep a worm farm to do that. And so today we thought that we would take you through the process of making a worm farm, so that you can try it out yourself. Worms have specific needs, earthworms we're talking about. And in order to keep them alive, they're going to require some things from you, so that you can have worms not just now, but also 5 years down the track, or whenever you actually need them. So today we're going to set up a worm farm, and we're going to show you how it's done. So as you may or may not know, Sicily is absolutely littered with old abandoned houses. There was sort of an exodus from the countrysides into the cities that took place in the 1950s era, basically when electricity arrived here. So there's all these old abandoned properties, and in them you can find old sinks, things like this. So this is made out of some kind of concrete. It's not asbestos, which you also do find. So that's one thing to be aware of, at least around here, is don't use the asbestos ones. Although in this kind of application it probably wouldn't matter too much. But regardless, this came from an old abandoned property. And they're great for worm farms. The main thing that you want to look for is that it drains. Okay, so it has a drain on it. I've seen people use old bathtubs, anything that'll drain, but also to some extent hold moisture is perfect, because kind of like compost, worms require some moisture and air. But if there's too much water, then the worms obviously will drown. So we've got our old sink, and now we're going to prop it up and turn it into a worm farm.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. The fluids that come off of a worm farm is actually really good fertilizer. It's like rocket fuel for plants. So we collect it. So we're going to put this jar right here under where it drains. Now, next thing we want to do is we actually want to block the drain a little bit. So what we don't want is, as the material composts down from the worms and turns into dirt, we don't want that it blocks the drain. So we actually want to put a screen there so that it remains open. So we're just using this fiberglass screen. You can use metal too. Metal will eventually break down, but this won't. So we use this. And then just put it in there. Okay. Now we just want to add some bedding material. And now we're going to add the worms. These are from another worm farm. Alright, so we've got our worm farm elevated. We've got a jar to collect the fluid coming off. We've got some bedding material in there.
Got the worms.
Worms are in there. So, what do worms need? You know what worms need?
Worms need shade, water, air, and then also bacteria, and also shade. Since even though they don't have eyes, they're still light sensitive, so they like shade. Worms don't actually eat whatever you're putting inside your worm farm. They actually eat what lives on that, which is the bacteria. Worms help speed up the process of composting because they aerate the compost, and also they help spread the microorganisms all around.
Alright, worm farm done. Not much to it really. Just have some kind of container. Old sinks, old bathtubs work great. Get it up off the ground so it drains. Got a jar here to collect the effluent, the excess fluid that comes off. We love worms. We're friends of the worms. We have worms. And we hope that someday you too will have worms.
So if you like the content, please consider to like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments what you think.